Welcome to Nole, the official podcast of the College of Arts and Sciences at Florida State University. I'm your host, Amy Walden, the Assistant Director for Visual and Social Media with the college, and today we welcome Rainier Loshouse. Rainier is a professor and chair of the Department of Modern Languages and Linguistics, and he's been a member of the FSU faculty since 2000 and specializes in French and Italian Renaissance literature. Rainier, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So on today's episode, we're taking you inside Florida State University's language houses, which provides students an immersive language living experience without ever leaving campus. Currently, FSU is the only Florida university with live-in foreign language houses, but the concept has been part of other institutions around the country, including New York's Cornell University, University of Virginia, and Virginia Tech. So, Rainier, before we dive in, let's set the scene. How many language houses are currently available to FSU students?
Thank you. So right now we are actually starting our third language house this fall. That's the Italian language house. And we have two more. So there's an Arabic language house, which is going into its third year, and the Japanese language house going into its second year.
Wonderful. And where are these located on campus?
So they're all in conjoined apartments inside Reagan's Hall. So they all have a number of apartments depending on the amount of students per language house, where they live together in both private rooms and a collective space, a communal space with kitchen and living room, and where they can practice language.
And it's a great way to experience dorm life a little bit too while they're there.
Exactly, yes.
So why is an immersive experience like a language house so beneficial when it comes to students acquiring a language successfully?
Yeah, so that's really something we actually have good research on that has shown that the language learning experience and sort of the development towards gaining proficiency in a language greatly benefits from really any kind of immersion experience, and so including a language house. And so it's in particular the case for oral proficiency. And if we compare that to students in a regular classroom setting, even though we have very good instructors who are very much aimed towards giving people communicative sort of settings in the classroom, it's always limited by time and, of course, by the amount of students in the same setting. Immersion in any form really gives so much more space and opportunity to constantly use the language. And that's the use of the language is really what you aim for, because that is what is going to boost your proficiency while you have, you may be learning language at the same time in terms of grammar and structures and vocabulary. But it's that use that's going to push you towards putting it all together and it becoming more of a natural process. So we really see clear advantages and more efficient and quicker gaining of proficiency in students in that setting. And it's, of course, trying to mirror in that sense, which would be the ideal setting of living in a certain foreign country and culture. But we're really trying to imitate that as much as possible. The last thing about that is as well that we really try to recreate it as a cultural experience. So language and culture go together. The more you have understanding of the culture, the more you'll have understanding of the language, and vice versa. So that would be the same if you were in the immersion experience in the foreign culture. So we're really trying to mirror that in the language house by having all the language use activities related to cultural activities. And then you have to think of a lot of food-related things. So we do cooking and any kind of foods and snacks related from that culture, but also other activities such as game nights. So a lot of oral proficiencies where you're forced to use the language and related to the cultural aspects of that particular language and culture.
Yeah, so in a lot of ways, it's like its own little world and ecosystem. And it's almost like traveling abroad, but you're
It's
right
almost
here on
like traveling
campus.
abroad, but you're still on campus. Yeah.
So FSU's language houses are all still fairly new, beginning first with the Middle East Center opening the Arabic language house to students in the fall of 2023. So going back to the start of it all, how did the idea for the language houses at FSU first come to be, and how did the Department of Modern Languages and Linguistics facilitate that?
Yeah. So full credit here goes to my colleague whom I would like to mention, Zaina Shlenov, who recently retired, but the years before she retired was very active. It's really her brainchild. She is sort sort of the founding figure. You mentioned Arabic. She was our lead Arabic instructor and really had this idea around 2018 to start this for Arabic in particular. And that makes a lot of sense because languages like Arabic, unlike Spanish, really need this opportunity of full immersion. It's much harder to come by other Arabic speakers that you can have this experience with. So it made a lot of sense. So she really thought this through quite well, and even at that point had some donors on board, which is always we're very grateful for. It took a while though before we had sort of the right constellation of our initiative, housing being on board and fully supported, as well as the dean of the College of Arts and Science being on board with it. And you need those stakeholders. We're very grateful to them. In particular, housing is one of the most important ones because we are using dorm space, so we have to work with all these parameters of the dorm housing, and that needs to set a lot of what's going on instructionally and in terms of funding. So that took a while, but we're very happy that we sort of got that together. It really took off. Zaina was very instrumental in bringing really to full flight. The department saw this as a great opportunity, and so we can, of course, provide the expertise of language instruction and faculty being involved in giving the best experience. But it also fitted in well with sort of the mission of our department at the time, which is that we had for quite a while already been thinking how we can bring more of our curriculum to the earlier levels of career for students, so freshmen and sophomore. A lot of what we offer in terms of language proficiency, cultural courses, literature are more at the major level, whereas the students sort of at freshman and sophomore level take the basic language courses. But other than that, we wanted to offer more curriculum that showed more of what we do linguistically and culturally. And among a couple of other things, the Language House is a perfect opportunity for that because it really allows students with only 1 year or 1 semester of language proficiency to come in, have a great fun experience, exciting, very efficient way of learning languages. So this is really one way for us to bring this fun aspect of learning foreign languages to a new group of students earlier on in their career.
I love that. And it really does sound like they're having a lot of fun in the program. So that brings me to my next question. What do students need in order to be considered for residency at one of the language houses?
So let me first say we want to make this as easy as possible on you. So that's an important aspect from the get-go. For us, that was an important criteria. We're really only asking that you have about a semester to a year of the language under your belt. And that's really mainly for pedagogical and learning reasons, because with that level of language, so little beyond beginners, you are really going to have most benefit from this immersion experience. It's going to give you the biggest boost in terms of language learning and language proficiency. So we're aiming towards sort of end of freshman and sophomore level of language proficiency. That's really the only sort of admission criteria, if you wish, that we're looking for. Other than that, it's really just the practicalities of being on time with your housing application. I believe that's always in the fall or early November. And then if you are selected for the language house and participate, you'll be enrolled for a 1 credit hour course that is not at all like a regular course on campus in that sense with exams or anything. It really shows a reflection of your participation in the activities of the language house, the cultural and oral and speaking activities, language use activities, and living there. And it's sort of a reflection that then you have on your transcript of having done this experience. So that's really it.
That's awesome. And I think that something like that would look great on a transcript too. So in the houses, we of course have the students, but can you talk a little bit about the instructors and how the houses actually operate?
Yeah, absolutely. So for each house, we have the same principle, which is that there is a faculty member sort of overseeing this. We call them the program facilitators, but they sort of instructionally in charge of the language house. They don't live there, but they will help coordinate the activities, organize the activities, schedule the activities, and sort of monitor the language process of these students. These students are very often, in most cases, also taking language classes with us, so they have multiple opportunities to interact with this faculty member. So these faculty members are often specialized in this particular aspect of language learning, right, related to being together in an immersion setting, unlike a classroom setting. Then on top of that, we have, this is a very important aspect, we have live-in assistants. So these are native speakers of the language who live with the students in each language house, often a little bit older, so they may be an exchange student or a graduate TA in a master's program, that sort of thing. They really have the task of facilitate language use. So basically, create the immersion and make sure the students speak as much as possible, interact as much as possible, help the faculty members with conducting the activities. So again, a lot related to social things like cooking, game nights, watching a movie and talking about it. So they are the on the ground or in the apartment person that really create and maintain this full immersion setting. So those are the two people most involved. Yeah.
That's great. So beyond speaking a language with their peers, and you've touched on this a little bit already, but what other kinds of things do students get to do and get the opportunity to participate in while living in the language house?
Yeah, so like I said, a lot of this is communal activities, right? So I think the language learning happens really through activities in the language house. So there's, of course, also the daily life, and the native speaker will be there to remind you to do your daily life in the foreign language. So that's actually a very exciting aspect that keeps the language always alive. But there are these activities that are really the most focused. So there will be a cooking session and a meal together, but that will be accompanied by a series of sort of educational materials, things that they need to learn, certain expressions associated with certain foods, etc. Same thing for game nights, other things that we, watching a movie together, talking about it, foreign language TV also in the language house. So that's important that we can sort of have discussions about comparing things that you watch on TV. And it's really, again, mostly oriented towards fun activities. The students, of course, also live on campus. They need to do their daily things and whatever else they are engaged with, and we'll keep doing that. That's of course, a balance you need to find because it is simply your dorm room as well. These activities take place about once or twice a week, that there's a really clearly organized activity. And then, of course, we like to work with what the students themselves like to create and work with that in the second language. Yeah.
It's so cool. And the TV aspect is something that I really didn't even think about. So
that's right.
And that really can help you feel immersed in the language.
Right. Yeah.
So learning a new language can, of course, be intimidating, especially becoming comfortable speaking it. What advice would you give to a student who's maybe nervous or on the fence about applying for a language house?
Yeah, don't be nervous, first of all. You'll be very welcomed. It will be a very warm environment. Our instructors and all of us in the Department of Foreign Language and Linguistics, we are good at working with all levels of language. That's what we trained for. And so that's what we really, we do already in all of our classrooms. Of course, the aspects of getting yourself out there, potentially making mistakes is what people are often afraid of, is a little bit more intimidating in the language house setting, and we get that. So we really try to work with students. We'll meet you where you're at, and the same goes for the language house. Also, in that sense, I'd like to tell these students, in particular the non-native speakers among us, have been there ourselves. I was there myself when I had to learn French or Italian, which ended up being the languages I'm most specialized in. But I once was at that stage. And so it's important to see that you will easily get through it. It's very important to give yourself over to the flow of the communication. Focus on communication. How do I communicate? Don't focus on your mistakes. We as linguists don't even consider mistakes. Their language is what it is. And it's there for creating communication and for creating human connections. And as long as it's doing that, it's going to work in your head and in your brain, and it will become more and more natural. So that's a better way to think of it as, I need to follow these rules, and if I don't do that, I make a mistake. It's much better to think of it as, how do I manage to communicate what I want to say? And that will come naturally at that point. And again, the language house with its immersion setting, I think is ideal. You'll quickly find that it is not intimidating at all.
I love that advice so much about the flow and just letting it happen, even with mistakes. Looking ahead, what are you most excited for when it comes to the future of the language houses here at FSU?
Yeah, I think we'd love to grow these. So internally in the department, we're already talking about what would be the next languages we'd like to add to these similar setting. But generally, I think it's really to be able to offer this experience, which is a college life experience, really, when you think about it, and to be able to offer, at least to the students interested in that, kind of a global setting and have learning a foreign language and culture be part of your college life. And so it's kind of creating a little bit global citizens on campus. And on top of that, contribute to that in this fun way. So if we can develop that more, I think that would be great. I think people will realize that this is a great enrichment of college life. One of the things, in fact, that we are trying to explore right now, and I'm very excited about that, is to have the Modern Language and Linguistic Language House as a form of, in the same framework and idea as a living learning community. And that makes perfect sense because it is a living and learning community which you conduct in a foreign language and in another culture. And so that's really the aspect that I think is going to be enriching students in their college experience. So we're very excited about that.
Well, we're excited to see what comes next for the language houses. So Rainier, we end every podcast with our bowl of mystery questions.
Oh,
so
great.
please draw a question
Ooh,
and answer.
Yes. I'm so curious. Ooh, what's something most people would be surprised to learn about you?
Okay.
Okay. So here's something that I recently started getting into. I don't think most people have seen me doing this, but I recently got into rock climbing.
Oh,
yes.
That's great.
And so one of my children is actually very active in this, and I thought that was just so much fun. So I discovered this whole new way of facing challenges. Let me put it that way. So yeah, it's another fun thing you like to do, but where you can really focus on, both your body and your mind focus on the same thing. So
that's wonderful.
That's not, maybe people are not surprised. Maybe they are learning that about me, but yeah.
I was, and
Yes.
I think that's great. And
Good.
it's a good metaphor for learning a new language, tackling the mountain, you know?
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. There's obstacles, but you will overcome them eventually.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Rainier, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. And if you would like to learn more about FSU's language houses or the Department of Modern Languages and Linguistics, visit mll.fsu.edu, which we've linked for you in the description box. As always, thanks for tuning in to Nole.